Hello, hello. So it's been a while since I have reviewed any CXC beauty products. I honestly kind of took a break from them to see what else I could pull out from my stash. And recently, for Memorial Day weekend, I was just kind of like, I want something a little bit more on the gold side, a little bit more beige, a little bit more neutral. So I thought I would pull this palette out and see how I liked it. This when I, as of right now, CXC Beauty, their boxes are just a carton with a window, and then on the back there's a sticker that has all the ingredients. I've personally have thrown it away. I usually like to keep my boxes, but in this case I didn't really feel like the box was going to really do anything for my palette. It wasn't really going to protect it, so I kind of just have this palette floating in some bubble wrap. But I just wanted to say why they don't have the usual outside packaging like I always usually do. But this is the Essential Edit by CXC Beauty. And I remember when I was trying to pick which neutral palette of theirs, I remember reaching out to the brand because I was trying to figure out what and which neutral palette of theirs to try. And I should have probably followed my gut, and I'm sure they also gave me really good advice because they told me the differences between the shades in their neutral palettes, but I decided to take a dive and buy a palette I usually don't ever really have any interest in, and I picked this one up. To me, this is a palette that's a lot more cooler, maybe a bit more neutral. It's very toned down, and that's something that I usually don't do. So I decided to pick this palette up. There's a nice big mirror in there that I'm covering up with this letter, but here we have the palette. This is the Essentials Edit. It's a very neutral, I feel like a much cooler kind of taupe palette. We have some shades that I feel are a bit more pinky, a little bit more purple. There's blues in there. I don't know if you can see, but that is a blue. That is a blue. This, oop. That is a blue. This is a black. We have kind of a lead pencil gray in here. We have a brown, and then we have like our kind of more champagne colors. This is a little bit more mauve looking. But this is a palette I ended up using for Memorial Day weekend, and ultimately I'm gonna have to give this palette away. I'm kind of sad about it, but I want to say that it's absolutely nothing to do with necessarily the palette or the brand or anything. It was more of my choices and knowing that this was not a color story I usually ever look at or feel like looks really good on me or works for my skin tone. And I'm sure they'll say like, no girl, it totally works on your skin tone. But I personally don't feel like that way, and since I didn't feel that great wearing it. I mean, I thought it was pretty, but I think the main thing that I always think about is, will I ever reach for this palette again? Will I ever be thinking about this palette again? Because there are palettes that I use, and I'll be using like another palette and I'll be like, oh my god, this palette totally reminds me of, you know, this Jeffree Star palette or this Jolie Beauty palette, this CXC Beauty palette, whatever it is that I'm using. And while I thought these were, you know, cute, pretty simple looks, which is what I was looking for that weekend, I was looking for neutral looks, I am not a neutral look girl for every day. And I've made a friend at work recently, and this is like totally her vibe. And when I was using it, I just kept thinking my friend, her name's Taylor. I was like, girl, Taylor would love this. I think this is the palette for Taylor, because I don't think this is really the palette for me. But like I said, it has nothing to do with the formula. This is, oh, the blending. So easy to blend. Absolutely a high quality palette. I do have to say that. These just are not my colors. But the formula for CXC Beauty is like always banging. It's always spot on. And what I really appreciated was that this time around, because I've had issues, so many issues of me ordering from CXC Beauty and their palettes breaking on me because they would send them to me from Florida to Oregon and they would come broken and I'd be so sad. I was like, no. And this time around, it looks like they're really trying to make sure that their palettes arrive safely, because this originally had some styrofoam in between the shades and the mirror, and that absolutely made a huge difference. Not a single hair, a single shade out of place. So pretty. I totally think, I feel like I say this in a lot of my videos, but this really is a really good palette for the person who wants everyday makeup. This is kind of like everyday high-end, because this is a more expensive palette, but you can definitely tell by the formula why it's a more expensive palette. Let's get a swatching. The formula in here is just so soft, which by the way, it stands up on its own. That's pretty cool. It also lays, I believe it lays flat for the most part. Yeah, it lays pretty flat. I don't really like this though. Let's do, what was my favorite in here? This is a really pretty shade. I always start with the shimmers because they're my favorite. This is really pretty. I really liked this shade. It reminded me of there's these super wet, like ultra wet shadows that Morphe came out with, and it kind of reminds me of that. I also really liked this shade. Ooh. You gotta be careful because they're super delicate. Just some nice champagne-y looks. Oh wow, look at that glow. These are a little flaky, and I personally don't mind flaky as long as the flake will then settle in to what it needs to be. That is so pretty. I want to do a little bit more over here. Ugh, it's like butter. It's so soft. It's so nice and soft. That's really nice and pretty. I really liked, in terms of the mats, they're all stamped now. That's something new that they've started doing. I really liked this kind of plummy shade. This is really pretty. I also really liked a shade like this. And something that I liked, which is also a little bit bizarre, was that they're not as intense as you think they would be. Like, they just felt also soft on the eyes. Like, I would apply, because sometimes I apply, like, say, like, darker shadows, and then I'm like, oh no, like, I'm really gonna have to figure out how to buffer this out because I put way too much, and now it's gonna be way too strong. But not with this. Like, it is so pretty. It almost feels like it kind of oxidizes a little bit, maybe, which I personally like. You can totally pack it on. Do you see that? It's, you know what it is? It feels like it gives it almost like a blurred effect. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on here. I've been doing swatches for other for other palettes as well, so I think that's maybe what it is. But it is so pretty. And that's what which other one should I do? Let's do this one. It gives it like a blurred effect. It's really hard to describe. Like, do you know how you try to like blend out your edges and stuff? A palette like this would make it so easy. Listen, at the end of the day, I totally recommend CXC Beauty. Their makeup eyeshadow palettes are definitely the star for their brand. I really liked the formula for this this palette. It's just the color story. I don't think I'm going to come back to it. That doesn't mean it's not a good palette. I just don't think it's the palette for me. But I think this is an amazing palette for others, especially for others who are trying to buy high-end palettes while also supporting a makeup brand where, like, you can see the owners. You know who the owners are, and you can see them making this product. They do updates. They have a shop at a mall now in Florida, which I think about all the time because I'm like, oh my god, I totally would want to go. I really like this product. It's a good product. I'm personally going to pass it on to a friend, but this, if you're thinking that this is the palette for you, like I said, this definitely feels more cooler leaning to me, then I think you should do it, girl. Do it. Grab it. This is really pretty. I love the simplicity of the outside. I like the packaging. Like, it's nice, hard packaging. Like, the cardboard is nice. Like, I get it. Eco-friendly and stuff. But the thing with this as well is that these shades are magnetic. So if you want to move your shades around and make it in a way that makes sense to you, you can also do that. These are magnetic. They're all magnetic. I don't think I've seen a product of theirs yet that isn't magnetic. But yeah, totally check out the website. Give them a try. I feel like every a couple months they're having a sale if you wanted to not do the jump until maybe you see that. But I really like this palette and I totally recommend it.